Alright, so in this example, we still have a rational equation, but we no longer have a single rational expression on one side and a single rational expression on the other side. We actually have two fractions here, so we're really doing an operation where we're adding them. So what we have to do is we could potentially add these together and then do what we were doing, but it's a lot easier if we just go ahead and find the LCD. Once we find that LCD, I'll show you what we'll do with the LCD. So I know x and x, so I'm definitely going to use that x, and we're going to use the 4. So 4x would be my LCD. Now what we're going to do with that LCD is I want to get rid of these fractions. Fractions are difficult to deal with, so if we can remove them, which we can, using this LCD, we'll be a lot better off. So if I multiply this by 4x, I'm going to multiply this by 4x, and I'm going to multiply this by 4x. And in reality, we're multiplying by 4x over 1, so if you want to write it over 1, you can. So all I'm going to do now is just divide out these x's. So x divides out, and you get 20. The 4's divide out, and you get 7x. And then you divide out an x, and you get negative 36. So now if you notice, you have a nice two-step equation, which makes our life a lot easier than it was up here. So from here, now just solve it. So your final answer is x equals negative 8. So remember, all we have to do is find the LCD. Once we find the LCD, multiply everything by the LCD to remove those fractions. We don't want fractions. Fractions just confuse us, make things a little bit harder. So if we can make it a little bit more simpler, we can. So our final answer is x equals negative 8. Make sure you check it, see if it works out. You can just plug it into the calculator to check that. But that's how you do it. Alright, so let's look at this example. Again, I have a rational equation, but I don't have single rational expressions on either side of the equal sign. So that means that I know that I'm going to have to get rid of those fractions. So I'm going to try to figure out how I can do that. And we know from that previous example, I have to find that LCD. Alright, so I want to find that LCD. Now to find that LCD, remember we always want to factor the denominators. Alright, so factor. Looking at this guy, very easy to factor if we remember how to do that. This is a difference of squares. So this is x minus 1, x plus 1, and then plus 3. Alright, so now that we have that, I have to find the LCD of this fraction and this fraction. So you know it's going to be x plus 1 and then x minus 1. So now that we have that, I have to multiply everything by that. So I'm going to multiply this by x plus 1, x minus 1, all over 1. Same thing here. I'm going to try to fit that in right here. I should have gave myself some space, but hopefully I can get it in. And then I'm going to multiply this by x plus 1, x minus 1. So everything. You have to do every single thing. If you don't, it won't make sense. Alright, so from here now, what we're going to do, we have to divide out what we can divide out. So this divides out and this divides out, which is great because that means I no longer have a fraction. And then over here, we want to see what divides out here, which is nice. The whole thing, or the whole denominator will divide out, which is perfect. So this would be 12. And then plus 3, x plus 1, x minus 1. Alright, so from here now, what we want to do is we're going to have to simplify everything. Basically, we're going to put all of these together. So to do that, you're just going to multiply this times this. You use the box method if you need to. So from here now, if you notice, I knew that this, right, this is difference of squares, so I know that's really just x squared minus 1, so I took the 3, multiplied it by that to get 3x squared minus 3. So kind of did that in my head, but if you need to do it out, use the box method, but be efficient. You know this equals this, so if we just not add the 3, but multiply that 3 on that outside, you get that. Now we're going to move everything to the left side, so I'm going to subtract this guy from this guy, get x squared. So those, we just did those. We no longer have a, we'll put these together, so this would be 9, right? 12 minus 3 is 9, and then I'm going to bring it over to this side, and I'm going to subtract and get negative 10. So I'm left with that. Okay, now we need to think what we need to do from here. Anytime that you have a trinomial equal to a 0, you should start to think your favorite acronym, ZPP. ZPP. So before I erase this, let's just make sure we go through the steps. We found the least common denominator, multiplied every term by that least common denominator to get rid of the fractions. Once we did that, we basically simplified, multiplied everything together. Then we put everything together and we had the trinomial here, which is x squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. So now we're going to take this and we're just going to factor it and solve it. So a lot of steps on this one, but it's all steps that you guys know how to do. It shouldn't be that challenging once you figure out how to do all of this stuff. It's just tedious, really. It's all steps that you guys know how to do. So let's go ahead and see if we can factor this. Alright, so I have x squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0, and I know that I can factor into a product of binomials if and only if I can find a value that multiplies to negative 10 but adds to negative 3. And in my head I'm thinking we can do negative 5 plus 2. I know negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Negative 5 plus 2 is that negative 3. Now you can only do that because the a value is 1 here. So if the a value is not 1, you have to use different techniques to solve, or I shouldn't say solve, but to factor. Once we have it factored, we can now solve using ZPP. Okay, so now that we have this solved out, or set equal to 0, I'm just going to head and solving that for x. So I have my two values. I have x equals 5. And I have x equals negative 2. So a lot of work for this one, but the work is all prior stuff, prior knowledge that you guys already know how to do. So we're just basically putting those all together now. Now you can check that, see if it makes sense. It definitely does. I already checked it, but get in the habit of checking these. You can just plug it into your calculator, to be honest with you. But good luck with this, and you guys can get this.